Hi, I'm Robyn, and welcome to my channel. Are you interested in queer romance, Jewish fiction, psychology, Tolkien, and or classics? I really hope so, because otherwise I'm making this channel for literally just me. As you can tell by my channel name, I identify as a hobbit. I'm a huge Tolkien fan. I have been ever since I was in high school. I think Tolkien provides a great sense of escapism, and his fantasy world building is incredible, and the stories are so full of hope by the end. There's a lot of dreariness involved in the lore, but overall I get a lot of enjoyment out of Tolkien, and I think that hobbits are the best race in Middle Earth. I would love to just have an existence where I just ate and farmed and read and had awesome clothes. I aspire to be Bilbo Baggins, pretty much, but I own the title of Hobbit very proudly, and I hope that anyone else who identifies as a Hobbit does as well. And I welcome you into the Hobbit family. Some other things to know about me is that I converted Judaism 5 years ago. I did it solely for myself, just because I felt a very strong connection with it. I am in an interfaith marriage, so we do celebrate like Christmas as well, but in a very secular way. My husband is not religious, but it's something that he grew up with. It's something that I grew up with, and so it means a lot to me in a very secular way. But I also celebrate Hanukkah, which will be sort of evidenced in the books that I talk about later on in the video. Additionally, I also read a lot of various psychology books because I work in the mental health field. And so I read a lot of the books for work, but also just for curiosity's sake. And so pretty much when I say like queer romances, Jewish fiction, psychology, Tolkien, like, and classics, like those are my main. Because I have acquired a lot of books through my life. But also I went through a really bad reading slump for about 8 years. When I was going through my undergraduate program and then my graduate program, and then about 3 years after I finished school. Because if you want to lose your love for reading, just go to a really intense school program. That'll pretty much kill it for you. And I only really started reading, I created a bookstagram in May of this year, so probably about May. As of right now, I've read about 52 and a half books, and that is probably 40 more books than I read in any previous year for the past like decade. I used to read a lot in high school, middle school, elementary, ever since I could just like hold a book. There's a picture when I was, I want to say like 5 or 6, maybe, just holding this huge tome of like Grimm's fairy tales. And I don't think that I could actually read it. I don't actually know, but I'm fairly certain 6-year-olds can't, or at least shouldn't, be reading Grimm's fairy tales. But there's a picture of me, so I believe that I did it. Because I went through this, very long slump where I didn't read, I was still getting books. So I was getting books as presents because I love reading. I would still go to bookstores because I feel a great sense of comfort in going to bookstores. And I also buy books and delude myself into thinking that I would actually read them. And I wish that I had, but I didn't. So by the time I really started reading, I had about 160 books on my shelves that I hadn't read, which was about a third of them, I think. And it's something that drove my husband crazy, because I would go to bookstores and get new books, and he would say, "But why? Because you have books at home that you haven't read." My husband is not a big reader, so he doesn't understand the compulsion to buy books. So, but he is very supportive of this channel and of my reading, at least so that I read more books that are on my shelves. And so I had about 160-ish books that I hadn't read, and so I just decided one day, after seeing one of my friends, she had created a bookstagram seemed to be working really well for her. And so I was like, hey, public accountability should work really well for me too. And so created a bookstagram, and my reading just grew exponentially. So that's been working really well, and I'm really looking forward to sharing my opinions on the books that I read, on making more of a dent on my bookshelves, which would be great. But I also have bought more books this year than I have bought previously. So, like the most well intentioned plans, they sometimes go awry. But I'm okay with it because I'm getting a lot of books that I really enjoy. Um, but because of this, I have books on my shelves that like probably aren't my preferred genre to read. My tastes have changed a lot over the years. Right now, I would say that my preferred genre to read is queer romances and Jewish fiction. And I didn't have a lot of that predominantly on my shelves. Um, all the queer romances and Jewish fiction books that I've read over the past year, I've bought, or my parents gave me for presents. But so I'm gonna have a mix. It's gonna be pretty eclectic, but I think the 5 categories that I listed at the top of the video will sum most of it up with some outliers. um, but that's a little bit about me. I wanted to keep this relatively short, give you a very brief synopsis. I will be filming weekly reading vlogs and occasionally probably uploading a second video during the week of just various topics, like a bookshelf tour, or um, book tags, or reading 24 hours, stuff like that. Like, I really want to do that stuff as well. But I do think a weekly reading vlog would be a really great way to hold myself accountable. I'm going to take a pause here, insert some B-roll, a little video of my Tolkien collection so that you can see it because I can't pan to it right now. And then I will get back with my December TBR. Okay, so for my December TBR, it is my most ambitious month, because I decided that the month that holds my birthday, Hanukkah, and Christmas was a great time to read more than 10 books. Luckily, some of them are fairly short, and I can definitely read them in less than a day, if not just in a handful of hours. So I'm expecting that I should make a decent amount of progress, but some will definitely take me longer, and I don't know if I'll finish them. The books that I'm going to show you fall into 3 main categories. The first of which is holidays, books about either Hanukkah or Christmas or both, across a wide array of genres. The second category is books that I am currently reading. These are books that I started earlier in the year, and I haven't finished them yet, but I say that they're on pause. Because I didn't DNF them because they're really interesting or they're necessary. So I haven't DNF them, but I would really like to finish them this month, or at least finish one. So that'd be nice. And then the third category is books that were recommended to me. I have some books that were recommended to me by my dad, and then also the technically subscription service called Tailored Book Recommendations, or TBR. They send you 3 book recommendations based off of your tastes and other books that you've read that you loved, or things that you don't want included in the books. And they send you 3 books every, well, you can get the actual book sent to you, but I get it to where I'm sent 3 book recommendations every 3 months. And so I just got mine in November, and so I would like to start reading those books if I have time. And we will really see if I have time. So, here are the books. They're within their categories, but they're not in any certain order. Although the book at the top is something that I started reading today. So this is Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. It's surprisingly funny. I haven't read any John Grisham books before, and because I didn't think that I would like him. Typically he writes for a genre that it just isn't for me. But this was given to me for a present sometime within the past 7 years. I don't remember exactly. I want to say like 3 years ago. Maybe 2. I have no idea. But it's really interesting. It is about a couple whose like 23-year-old daughter goes to Peru as part of the Peace Corps over Christmas, and so they decide that they're just not going to do Christmas this year. They're going to skip it. And apparently that is just not okay with the people in their town. And so it's really interesting. I'm about 40% of the way through. I'm listening to an audiobook primarily, but I'm really enjoying it so far, which is great. Next book, which I don't know if I will start it immediately. I typically, fun fact, I am terrible at decision making, and so to make my life easier, I have just taken that part out of the equation. I use Storygraph. I have a list of the books on my TBR. It's only books that are on my physical shelves and that I own. And so I just asked Siri to pick a number, and she picks a number, and whichever book that is what I read. So typically I ask her to pick about 7 books a month. Obviously this month is a little different. In January I will probably film a clip of me doing this because I don't know, maybe it'll give someone else an idea of how to let Siri run their life, because that's what it is. So anyway, the reason I bring Siri up is because I don't know if she will be having me read this book next. I hope so, because it's one of my most anticipated books of the year. And this is Kiss Her Once For Me by Alison Cochrane. Alison wrote The Charm Offensive, which I read last year and I really enjoyed. And I am sure I'll love this just as much. It looks really interesting. It follows the main character, Ellie, who had an encounter with another woman named Jack, but I guess Jack disappeared afterwards, and Ellie has spent the year trying to recover, and she's having some financial difficulties, and a friend of hers offers to essentially like marry her to also unlock his inheritance, and it helps both of them out. And so part of this, I believe, is that they go to like his family cabin, and who should be there but Jack, who is the friend of Ellie's sister. And so looks really interesting. Looks very like Hallmark Netflix Christmas movie vibes, which I'm here for. So hopefully Siri tells me to read it soon. The third book is Chrismica by Ron Gompertz. It's a satirical look at the combination holiday. I think my parents got it for me probably 5 or 4 years ago, probably shortly after I converted. And so I think this will be like a pretty quick read. Should be pretty funny. So I'm looking forward to reading it. The next book, which is one that I will have to read at least by the second week of December, is Season of Love by Helena Greer. I've actually read this book already. I read it as an ARC in August, but I run the book club for my Temple's 20s and 30s group, and so because Hanukkah is starting on the 18th, we're going to meet on the 20th, and so I chose Season of Love because it takes place over Hanukkah and Christmas. It's about this woman named Miriam. She has some complicated family relations. She was the closest to her aunt, great aunt, I believe, actually, who ran a Christmas tree farm, who recently passed away. And so Miriam is included in her will, and so she has to go to the Christmas tree farm, which she has always loved and felt this really strong connection to. to help like settle the affairs, and there's this whole thing about saving the Christmas tree farm, and it's really good. And that's where she meets Noelle, who in Miriam's absence has become pretty much part of the family. So there's some like butting head. It's very much like enemies to lovers, but it's a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. There are some deeper topics, so I guess a content warning for some parental emotional abuse, but it's largely thought and talked about. It's not actually on the page, but like I said, really good. And the next book is Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins by Eric Kimmel. This is a children's story about Hanukkah. I should be able to read this in about 20 minutes, but I had it recommended to me by a friend of mine at Temple, and because I didn't grow up Jewish, so any sort of Jewish children's story I get my hands on, I really try to read. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Before I forget, because I have filmed this video about 3 times already, and every other time I have forgotten. I have one more holiday book, but I have to say this before I forget. I was given an ARC called Felix Navidad. I will put the author's name at the bottom because I don't remember it. It is an e-ARC, so I don't have anything to hold up, so I will also just put a picture like right here. So I'm fairly certain it's a novella, but it looks really cute. It has, I think, some typical holiday movie vibes. So I will hopefully be getting to that sometime within the next week or so. So the last holiday book that I have is The Annotated Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I have read The Christmas Carol several times. My dad reads it every November, December, leading up to Christmas, so I'm very familiar with it. However, I have not read the annotated one, which is why it's on my shelf as a book I haven't read. So I'm really looking forward to it. I love reading other people's annotations. I'm not the best at keeping up with annotations as much as I would like. So I am super excited about this, but it is very large. So those are the holiday books. Now we are to books that I am currently reading, and there are 4. And I'm gonna just shout this one out because I don't have a physical copy, and because I don't have a physical copy, I'm more likely to forget to name it, like I have in the other 3 iterations of this video. So I'm currently reading The Leather Couch by Stephanie Gorelick. I have actually taken classes with Stephanie. She's really knowledgeable, she's really cool, and so I got her book after the first of her classes that I took. And so The Leather Couch is all about working with people in the kink population, and how to best and most appropriately work with them without adding any shame or anything, because there's nothing shameful about having kinks. We're very sex positive on this channel. So but I'm about 30% through. The last time I read it, because I have it on Kindle, last time I read it was probably July. And I think maybe I'm being generous when I say I'm 30% too. I think maybe I'm closer to like 25, 26. But I do plan to continue reading that because it was really interesting. I just got distracted because I don't know if it's obvious. I'm sure it will become obvious throughout my videos. I have ADD. So staying focused is not necessarily a strong suit if it's not directly in front of me, and because it's on my phone, I can get distracted by a lot of other things. So I definitely want to read that. I'll go ahead and stick with the workbook topics. So this is ADHD After Dark by Ari Tuckman. It is about the sex lives of people with ADHD. Most of the couples that he talks about are heterosexual, which he does a really great job of acknowledging, because he sent out a survey and that was just, he didn't get a wide enough answers, or a wide enough array of answers from the LGBT population. And so he acknowledges that like there's that gap. But he talks about heterosexual couples. I think most of them are partnerships where one person has ADHD and the other person doesn't. So it's a really interesting look at like how the ADHD impacts not just their relationship, but also specifically their sex life. And he talks about ways that he works with people on how to improve their sex life. So it's really interesting. I'm 172 pages in, so a little less than halfway. I think it's really interesting. That's why I've continued to read it on and off, mainly just when I have a break at work, but I would like to finish it this month. Last of the workbooks that I am currently reading, and yes, I'm going to do air quotes every time I say that, because some of them I've not picked up, or only recently picked up because I decided I was going to finish them by the end of the year. So this is Attachment with there we go. Okay. Attachment with Trauma-Informed Interventions by Christina Reese. It goes into the different attachment issues that people develop throughout their lives. I'm only 23 pages in, so haven't learned a ton, but it is really interesting. I just finished a chapter about how fetuses can have attachment wounds, and so that was really interesting, something I had not considered, and I'm pretty sure it's going to go all through the lifespan, which I think is really necessary. So I think it's really cool. The chapters are relatively short. It's a thin-ish book, but it's also larger, so who knows how long it's going to take me. I also just read nonfiction so much slower than fiction. I can read like a decent sized novel, like a 350-400 page novel, in a day, if I'm really into it, but it can take me an hour to read like 25 pages of nonfiction, just because distraction. And the final book in my currently reading, sorry, I didn't do the air quotes, currently reading, is Feasting and Fasting. It's a collection of essays about the ethics and history of Jewish eating. Right now, I have read a little bit today, so not an accurate reflection. Right now, I'm at 110 pages. I think I was at like 70 this morning. So I just got past the Middle Ages, and talking all about the influence of rabbis on Jewish eating. So it's really, really interesting, and I want to finish it, but again, just nonfiction is so much slower. But I'm hopeful. So finally, the last 4 books, technically I only have 3 physical ones, so I'm going to go ahead and say the last one now. These books are books that were recommended to me. The one I'm going to talk about now is called The Love Study. It was a TBR recommendation. I don't know a ton about it. I went ahead and ordered it. I'm still waiting for it to arrive in the mail. I'll put a little thing here. And I will definitely, give you my thoughts and opinions when it arrives and when I start reading it. So since I already talked about TBR books, I'm going to go ahead and go into the other 2 books they recommended to me. This one is Self-Made Boys by Anna Marie McLaren. It's a Great Gatsby retelling. In the recommendation letter, they literally said, in case you ever wanted Nick and Jay to be gay, which is a great way to make me read it. This is essentially like fan fiction, right? But I love fan fiction. Like, even when I was going through my huge reading slump all through school, I still read fan fiction. Most of it is Lord of the Rings. And yes, I write fan fiction, and no, I won't share it with you. Probably. I'm still debating. I might make a Patreon and I might share my fan fiction. We don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. But I am excited to read this. And hopefully soon, hopefully by the end of the month, we will see. The final TBR book is When the Angels Left the Old Country by Sasha Lamb. It was sold to me by TBR as a queer Jewish story. It's about an angel and a demon who live in a very small village, and they go to a shtetl that, it says in the blurb, is so small it's only called shtetl. And they're sort of dealing with, the younger Jewish people in their village leaving and going to bigger cities, and There's some other things that happen in here. I don't know a ton about it. I ordered it because it was recommended to me, but I am definitely looking forward to reading it. And then finally, I cannot tell you how long it has taken me to get through this, mainly because I'm still waiting for my actual camera to arrive. So I'm using my iPhone and my iPhone doesn't like it. Final book is Something Fresh by P.G. Wodehouse. My dad is an avid reader, and earlier this year he went through a huge thing where he read all of Agatha Christie's books, and I guess he decided he really likes binging authors, and so he switched to P.G. Wodehouse, and he has told me that I need to read it because he thinks I will like it. And I think he's probably right. Our tastes differ somewhat, but he knows my taste, he knows what I like. And he has an idea that he wants to start with me, and in order for that to happen, I need to read a book. This book. So from what he was telling me, it looks interesting. I've never read P.G. Wodehouse. I know nothing about P.G. Wodehouse. I only know what my dad has told me. It sounds bonkers, kind of, but I'm down for it. So I'm ready. So those are all the books I'm going to read this month. Maybe, hopefully. I would like to. I don't even know how many I just talked about. 14 is my guess. I'll put the correct number on the screen if I'm wrong when I'm editing. But I hope that you guys had some, at least, amusement in watching me ramble about myself and then about books. And I hope that we're able to build a relationship together, because as comfortable as I am talking to an empty room, it would be nice to have people talk back to me. So I'm going to sign off here. I'm going to get this uploaded as soon as possible. I'm going to start filming a weekly reading vlog and probably other stuff as well. So please subscribe, comment with a thumbs up emoji telling me that I did a good job, because I'd really appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.